Hello everyone, I'm Chase.
And I'm Joby.
That is the 2024 Hyundai Santa Cruz, and this is the Overrun. So, this is the 2024 Hyundai Santa Cruz. It starts at $26,900, and if you ask me, what it sets out to do is answer the question of what if I don't want another goddamn CUV? Now, in this case, that means you get a little trucklet, and this one, sitting behind me, starts at, or costs as sticker, $41,635. Now, Hyundai offers a couple of different powertrain options. There's a front-wheel drive 4-cylinder, and this one, the 2.5-liter all-wheel drive 4-cylinder mated to Hyundai's dual-clutch automatic transmission. Now, there are a couple of different competitors for the Santa Cruz that are also relatively small trucks. At the top end of things, there's the Honda Ridgeline, but for a moment, we're going to talk about the Ford Maverick, which starts at $23,815. Now, that's notably a few $1,000s cheaper than this starts at, and obviously almost half the price of the one that's sitting here in front of us right now. Now, the important thing to note about the Maverick is, unlike this, it offers a hybrid powertrain as its base front-wheel drive layout, which means that it gets significantly better fuel economy and also has a slightly longer 52-ish inch bed. We'll throw that number in if I've gotten it wrong, but it is bigger than the Mavericks than the Santa Cruzes, and that's what matters. Now, Ford also offers an all-wheel drive powertrain, and notably, both Ford and Honda offer more off-road oriented options for both of their trucks. In the Maverick, there's the FX4 package, which is only a few $100s, and there's also the Maverick Tremor, which is significantly more serious than this. I mean, this is on all-season tires right now. Now, at the other end of these brackets, we have the $39,750 Honda Ridgeline. Now, because that's a full mid-size truck instead of a slightly smaller compact truck, that means you get a larger bed. And this, in the case of the Ridgeline, it's 64 inches to the Santa Cruz's 52. That's largest in its competitive set for this video, which is something worth keeping in mind. The Honda also has a similarly powerful 3.5-liter V6 mated to an all-wheel drive system, so you don't have to pay for all-wheel drive when you get a Ridgeline. Now, the other thing to note is that, like the Maverick, Honda now also offers a sort of off-road spec in the Trail Sport, which is $44,000-ish. So with that in mind, if you want to spend a few more dollars, you can get a mid-sized truck that is also significantly more capable off-road.
Okay, let's go ahead and talk engine and powertrains here in the Hyundai Santa Cruz. There are two different options: a naturally aspirated 4-cylinder, which produces 191 horsepower and 181 pound-feet of torque. Then with the 2.5-liter turbocharged version, you're looking at 281 horsepower and 311 pound-feet of torque. This is also offered with all-wheel drive or front-wheel drive, and it even has a center locking differential. And the last little kicker is you can tow up to 4,000 pounds, which is cool. If you go camping or something, maybe you could tow a trailer with a, I don't know, pop-up tent or something. But very good, and definitely good numbers, especially here in the turbo version.
Now, this being the XRT trim, you do get some nicer stuff in the interior. Unfortunately, that doesn't really outweigh some of the downsides of this, which we'll get to in a second. For now, know that the XRT gets you this nice leather-wrapped wheel and the leather-wrapped shifting column thingy here. Interestingly, though, it doesn't get you leather upholstery. This is all synthetic leather stuff, which is kind of strange. And you'll also get adaptive cruise control at this level. Now, let's talk about the infotainment. There's some problems with this. Only in a world of other really super great Hyundai infotainment systems. A lot of their new refresh stuff, like the Kona that we just tested, features significantly higher equipment levels and better infotainment and UI for significantly less money. The Limited we tested was $31,000. Now, starting with the center gauge cluster, I think it's just a little too low. And so what happens is you actually need the steering wheel to be angled kind of high so that you can see down onto the gauge cluster. There's also not a whole lot of configurability. There's a decent amount, but you can't go to like a full screen map or something like that, which is also a gripe that I have about the new system. Now, my big issue, of course, is I'm going to do the car journalist bit. I hate the touch capacitive climate controls, because you'll go to reach for something and bump into a new menu, or you'll be messing with climate controls or menu controls, and I've gone to nav screen and bumped the auto climate control button multiple times. It's really not a great system, especially when you consider the competitive set like the Ridgeline and the Maverick all have great physical controls. The display quality is also not super awesome, but the resolution on the new system is not great either. Now, far and away, that's all okay. The infotainment system is all right. It's passable. It has wired Android Auto and CarPlay, which is great. But the big issue is rear visibility. It is, in a word, abhorrent. You can't see behind you. You can't see down onto the street behind you, and especially when I go to look over my shoulder like this, you can't see into an intersection, which is really honestly just dangerous. The rear visibility is awful in this truck, and it's definitely something you need to see if you're in the market for one of these, to see if it's something that you can live with.
Now, in the back seat of the Santa Cruz, it's very bare bones back here. Let's talk about space, I guess, first. There's a decent amount of leg space, definitely a good amount of headroom. I have plenty, maybe a good couple inches. It's definitely going to depend on where your front passengers are sitting, but I think it's just fine. I could definitely comfortably sit here for more than an hour without any issues. But the real party trick is the storage underneath the seat right here. There's a ton. Actually, you could fit, I don't know, a couple of 6-packs or something maybe back there. I don't know, whatever you want to fit back in your rear seats, you could fit back there. And then there's also a little window that you can open and close. It is manual. It's not automatic like some trucks have. But overall, it is fairly nice back here. I don't notice too much of a material quality drop off. There is no charging or connectivity back here, which I think is kind of a missed opportunity as well. But you know, I guess that's kind of what you get here. And then there are some tiny little cup holders here in the door. Not very big. Maybe you could fit like a standard, you know, soda bottle, but no like big water bottles. Definitely wouldn't pass the water bottle test. And the last thing I wanted to mention that Chase forgot in the front is there is a sunroof back here. Obviously that's going to depend on trim, but it is nice to see one of those in the truck. Okay, let's talk about the truck bed in a little bit more detail, because the bed is really what makes this a truck. So if we swoop around back here, one of the first things I want to cover actually has nothing to do with the bed, but has to do with this giant logo in the back, which I think is kind of comical. If anyone was wondering what you're driving, they can clearly tell. Anyways, if we open up the truck bed, you will notice that it is rather small. It is 52 inches, so it definitely fits into that compact truck segment. And the cool party trick of this truck bed is there's a little cover right here, and you actually have some additional storage underneath the actual liner itself, which is pretty nice. So I guess, you know, you get a little bit more than just 52 inches. The next thing is, at least on this version, we have a really nice tonneau cover right here, which we'll pull all the way out and we'll actually lock into place. I'm not going to lock it because it's kind of difficult to lock and unlock like it just did. Anyways, if we, as I struggle to do that, anyways, the tonneau cover is nice, but as you can see maybe here in the back, it actually compromises a lot of the rear space just because of the mechanism that's used to hold it when it's closed. Ideally, you probably, you know, if you really need all the space, you would, you know, forego the tonneau cover, but it is there if you need it. And we also have these little rails, which as I pull on them kind of seem a little loose, but it is nice. There are some LEDs back here for lighting, so if you're putting stuff in at night, you'll be illuminated. And then back here, there's also a nice 110 inverter. So if you're plugging something in, I don't know, maybe a miter saw, or I don't know, camping gear or something, a stove maybe, I don't know. But then you can shut this, and as you noticed, it is not powered, which I think is maybe a missed opportunity. A lot of trucks, mid-size, full-size, doesn't really matter, nowadays all have power opening and closing tailgates, which I wish we would see on this one, but maybe in the next generation of the Santa Cruz.
Let's also talk design real quick. This is certainly the most out there design of its competitive set that Jobe and I have chosen for this video. There's a lot going on, and you'll either like this or you won't. It shares the same sort of front end as a lot of the Hyundai crossovers, with this sort of unique grille shape and then the lower lighting arrangements down here. Now, there's tons of other cool little details around here that make this a little bit more entertaining to look at once you get closer. You'll notice immediately the black cladding around the sides, but there's also this cool little Santa Cruz truck there. The wheels look nice. Those are uprated for this trim. There's also these rock rails, which I do want to talk about. Frankly, I think they're a little bit performative, and I'll show you why. if we're sitting in the car and we're getting out, let's say that I've parked next to a curb. First of all, the curb is now under the rock rail or right next to it. And second of all, you kind of either have to step out of the car like this, or you have to just step on this like fake little rail hoop step thing. And it's just a little awkward. I feel like I have to put in extra effort to get out of the car and over the bolsters. It's a little strange, but anyways, let's power through it. Now you'll notice that there's this sort of upswept shape. We're gonna talk about how that kind of screws over your rear visibility in the driving segment, but for now, know that it really does. And then moving down the back, you also have, as Joby mentioned, these rock rail, or I'm sorry, just bed rails. They'll hold some weight, but not a lot of weight. That's definitely something to keep in mind. One of the things that I like at the back, though, is this little step. Now, normally you only see that on like super hardcore work trucky things, so it's kind of nice to have a way to get up onto, maybe you've got a roof tent up here, or you've got a rack that you need to get into, or you just are short and need to reach into the bed. And then of course, moving around the back, Joby already talked about the giant Santa Cruz badging. There's another little Santa Cruz logo there, truck outline, which is kind of nice. And then of course there's this nice sage green paint, which looks great. I think it's definitely kind of the quirkiest looking truck in this segment, which gets it some points in my book. The Maverick and the Ridgeline are both a lot more tame looking until you start to get to their upper trims like the Trail Sport or the Tremor.
Okay, we are now driving the Santa Cruz. I guess I'll start since I'm the one that's actually driving.
It's a yellow light, you gotta tap the dash.
Oh, okay. Well,
tap it. Thank you.
Anyways, first thing I noticed, because this is actually like my first time driving this truck, it's super smooth, which has been really the case with a lot of Hyundai's lineup that we've driven, and I like it. The bumps are almost non-existent.
Their suspension tuning is excellent.
Yeah, it's really great in here. Overall, I really like the seating position and the overall driving position in here. Feels nice. The truck feels, or the car, truck, whatever we're gonna call it. Trucklet, yeah. It feels nice and compact. So we're in downtown Denver right now, and being in something smaller is definitely a benefit, or at least feeling like you're in something smaller. Always makes you feel a little bit safer, but overall, I really do like the driving
Until you
dynamics.
go to park it and have to contend with the rear visibility.
yeah.
I agree with almost everything that you're saying. I really like the way that it drives. The power that comes out of this four-cylinder is fantastic. 281 horsepower, 311 pound-feet of torque. Yeah, the Ridgeline can tow 5,000 pounds instead of the 4,000. You know, the Maverick at least matches this. You know, it's competitive. I think that this is probably, I haven't driven the Maverick or the Ridgeline, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I find it really hard to believe that the Ford is going to drive better.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is probably the best driving one in the segment, and I think that the ADAS is really great too. You know, the adaptive cruise control works really well. I didn't have that issue that we had with the Kona where like the lead car would pull away and it wouldn't catch up fast enough.
Yeah.
This has definitely got the power to keep up. It's really great to drive around town. There's tons of sidewall on the tire, so it's really comfortable. I don't see any reason you couldn't put like some all-terrain rubber on this if you wanted to try and get a little bit of off-road usability out of this thing. I think it's a really great car. I just think that this trim is probably a little too pricey.
Yeah,
we'll get to that.
Agreed. All right, let's go ahead and conclude our review and overall thoughts on the 2024 Hyundai Santa Cruz. Chase, what are your thoughts?
So I think that the big reason that you buy this is as a replacement for an equivalently priced crossover, and in that regard, it's pretty great. Yes, there are some issues. The rear visibility is abhorrent. It's awful. It's the worst of almost any car I've tested in recent memory. It's pretty darn bad. The infotainment is not great, but that said, it drives like a CUV, which means it drives really nice around town. The dual clutch is good. The power is really great. You know, I mean, Honda needs a 3.5 liter V6 to make 280-ish horsepower. This does it with a significantly smaller and slightly more efficient engine. The big drawback for me, however, is that this isn't as much of a truck as a lot of its other competitors. And if I want a truck, I want a truck. That means I want a slightly larger bed out of something like the Maverick or the Ridgeline. And that also means that, for me at least as a truck buyer, I want a degree of off-road capability that for right now at least isn't offered in the Santa Cruz. Now maybe that changes in a refresh, but for right now, I would much rather go out and buy a Maverick, you know, FX4 that's got some good options on it than something like this, because I need that off-road capability. And I understand that that not everybody does.
Yeah, and I think the overall model for the Santa Cruz or the overall ethos of the Santa Cruz makes sense. Like you said, it's kind of a replacement to a CUV. But overall, if you are looking to purchase a Santa Cruz, I would at least recommend waiting until they refresh it, partially because the interiors on all of the newer Hyundai Kia vehicles that we've tested, we've spent a ton of time with, and we both really like the new interiors. The second thing is I hope in a second generation they add an option for maybe a little bit longer of a bed. I'm actually in the market for a truck at the moment, and because of the shorter bed here, you know, the 52 inches, I would want something a little bit longer. But yeah, those are my thoughts. But overall, I think it is a good product right now, but like Shay said, there's a lot of other trucks on the market that do things a little bit better than this one. So yeah.
Yep, and with that in mind, that is it. Thank you so much for watching, and please do remember to like and subscribe. If you hit the notification bell, it really helps out our metrics, which means that we can keep doing this. So thanks again so much, and we'll see you next time, guys.
Bye.